Welcome back to the Snowpoint Cast. Today we're going to be taking a look at a deck from RS to PK called Gardevoir Delta. The really sick archetype, one of my favorites in the format. Let's get right into it. So starting off with 4 Ralts, Delta species. You're playing both Delta species Gardevoir and a non-Delta species Gardevoir, but you may mainly play the basic Delta species Ralts to be able to benefit off of Delta Draw. With Castform, it kind of makes it a support option. 50 HP, Fire type. Calm Mind for 1, colorless, remove 2 damage counters from Ralts. Really bad attack, honestly. And then Will-O-the-Wisp for a fire colorless does 20. Playing 2 Kirlia as well. The Delta species ones for the same reason as stated before with the Castform Delta Draw. 70 HP, Flickering Flames. This is a little bit better. So fire colorless, the depending Pokemon is now asleep. So it's not as bad as Heal 2 on a 50 HP basic. And then Smack for 3. Fire double colorless does 20. Okay, but the reason you're playing these guys is for this line. So the Gardevoirs are so good in this deck. So you play 2 Gardevoir EX, 150 HP, fire type. Imprison is the power on this guy. So Imprison is one of the best Pokemon powers in this format. It's an extremely powerful power. So essentially what Imprison does is once during your turn before you attack, if Gardevoir EX is your active Pokemon, you may put an Imprison marker on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Any Pokemon that has Imprison markers on it can't use any Poke Powers or Poke Bodies. You can shut off anything. Poke Powers, Poke Bodies, this is especially useful against stuff like Blastoise, but also can come in really clutch against other Pidgeots, or honestly just anything that you're kind of not wanting to deal with, whether that's a Poke Body or a Poke Power, you can just shut it off. So an amazing lock tool in this deck. And then the attack on it is pretty good as well. So for fire, 2 colorless does 80. And then it gives you the option to move a fire energy attached to Gardevoir to one of your bench Pokemon. So that's nice because sometimes you have a Holon's Castform attached as an energy. So it lets you move 2 energy instead of 1. So you kind of just keep your energy really mobile. Speaking of keeping your energy mobile, that's actually a perfect segue. You play 2 of this Gardevoir, which also kind of adds in with that strategy and kind of just lets you be really conservative with your energy, have it out of the active and not have to worry about it. So this Gardevoir is also Delta species, 100 HP. It's Psychic and Metal type. So you're playing 3 varied weakness hits here on a single Gardevoir line, which is pretty good. Energy Jump is the power, so Energy Jump is also a really important part of the deck. Really good. That's the reason that I play 2. I've seen some lists play only 1, but I think it's so good, and it's the best Gardevoir attacker, so I think playing 2 just kind of makes sense. So Energy Jump, once during your turn for your attack, you may move an energy card attached to one of your Pokemon to another one of your Pokemon. So just being able to be mobile with your energy, I think it's, Flame Ball. You Flame Ball wherever you want, move that energy, and then you can just move it back if you want to use Flame Ball again. So that's really nice. You'd be able to be conservative, but also be able to just keep attacking with the Gardevoir if that's what you want to do. Has 2 really good attacks as well. So Psychic Rage, the less good one. It's still situationally got some solid pull, but Metal Colorless, Psychic Rage, choose one of your opponent's Pokemon. This attack does 10 damage for each damage counter on Gardevoir to that Pokemon. So it's pretty solid snipe. If your opponent fails to knock you out, they hit you for like 80 or something, then you can snipe for big, which is really nice. Especially with special metals, because it's a metal type, you do play special metal energy. So you can put special metals on there, and then it lives a little bit longer usually. 100 HP is kind of easier to hit than 110 or 120. So being able to buff that up a little bit is kind of nice for Psychic Rage to get the damage counters on you. And then Black Magic is a really solid attack. So for Psychic 2 colorless, does 10 damage plus 20 more damage for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So if your opponent has a full bench, you're swinging for 110 for 3, which is really, really good. I mean, there's also, obviously, if your opponent knows the matchup, they'll probably try to restrict their bench, but in some matchups, you just can't really afford to do that, and you need to load your bench, like Stage 2 matchups. So it just lets you swing for a lot of damage on a relatively tanky attacker that also functions with Energy Jump for a little assist there. So really great card in the deck, super solid. You're also playing 1 of this Gardevoir. So this Gardevoir is really vital depending on what matchup you're playing. Honestly, it's overall really good, but in some matchups, it's like a really important tech card. So 100 HP as well. Heal Dance, once during your turn for your attack, you may remove 2 damage counters from one of your Pokemon. So just obviously healing 2 is good. This is especially good against spread decks. You kind of just limit your bench to this Gardevoir and maybe another one. Potentially a third, but against something like Rye-Eggs, you don't really want to be benching a lot of Pokemon, especially because most of your Pokemon have powers once they're evolved. So you just keep it at 2, and then they swing for a decent amount, but being able to heal the chip damage can be really, really nice. And also just being able to manipulate your numbers so that your opponent keep them guessing. If you have 80, all of a sudden you have 60. That messes with their math, which is kind of nice. The attacks on this Gardevoir are pretty awful, to be honest. Psy Punch for a Psychic Colorless does 30, and then Mind Shock for 4 Psychic 3 Colorless does 60, and it isn't affected by weakness or resistance. So pretty bad attacks, but the ability on this guy is really, really powerful. Okay, also playing Pidgeot line because Pidgeot is the best support stage 2. It's just so good. So you play this Delta species Pidgey. It has less HP than the normal one, but it also lets you draw more with Delta Draw on the Castform. So Castform, just that much better of a support Pokemon as you set up, which is kind of nice. Yeah, 40 HP, not amazing, but wing attack for 1 color does 10. You're also playing this Pidgeotto for the same reason. Delta species just lets you Delta Draw for more. Whirlwind for a Lightning color does 30, and then your opponent switches the defending Pokemon with one of his or her bench Pokemon. But this is the reason you're playing that. So the Pidgeot is really, really solid. 100 HP. Quick search. Once during your turn before you attack, you may search your deck for any one card and put it in your hand, then shuffle your deck. You can't use more than one quick search, but just being able to search your deck for any one card is so broken in any deck that you can play it in. Just such a good power. One of the best Pokemon has ever printed. So being able to do that, especially when you're kind of a combo deck, there are some pieces that you need to hit. Like you need to hit your Energy Jump. Sometimes you need to hit Imprison, Energy Jump, and Heal Dance. That's a 3 Gardevoirs. If you have all 3 of those out, you're like utility. You're able to heal. You're able to move energy, especially with Warp Energy. There's a lot of switching in this deck. Just based on what you want to attack with. You have to put this Gardevoir on the active to use Imprison, so you do need to switch a fair amount. And just being able to quick search to be able to have whatever card you need is really nice. Something else I'll note about Pidgeot as well. Pidgeot has free retreat, so that's another really important aspect, is having a free retreater. It lets you go Warp Energy on the Gardevoir, and then put the Pidgeot up, and if you want to attack with the Gardevoir, like let's say you want to attach a Warp Energy to an active Gardevoir, you put it up to Imprison, but you're forced to switch if you attach a Warp, and that's the only energy that you have. Let's say you can Warp to the Pidgeot and then just free retreat back, which is kind of nice. Another added bonus of free retreat is it lets Pidgeot be a utility attacker sometimes. Like I was saying, Warp Energy just lets you switch around. So if you warp to a Pidgeot, you can use this Gardevoir, Energy Jump a Holon's Castform, and then in one swift motion, you can go from 0 energy on a Pidgeot to an attacking Pidgeot. So that's kind of a great play. It opens up your weaknesses as well. Lets you hit for colorless, which can be really relevant if you're playing against something that's colorless weak. And Clutch overall, it's a pretty decent attack. So 40, and then the defending Pokemon can't retreat until the end of your opponent's next turn. But the reason that this is like really, really good is because sometimes you reach a board where you're pretty much set up to the point that you don't really care if Pidgeot dies. Like, because you can move energy, if your board is already loaded with energy, and sometimes there's plays that you need, but sometimes this is better as just a one prize attacker, so you can kill something with Clutch, and then if they revenge KO you, it's on a Pidgeot and not on one of your Gardevoirs, which is your like late game attackers that you want to be cleaning up the game with. So Clutch is kind of a cool attack that you can use in some positions as well. Okay, so getting into some of the one-ofs. Actually, before we do that, let's talk about Castform. So Castform is a pretty important part of this deck as well. So you play 3 Holon's Castform, 50 HP, Delta Draw, 1 colorless, count the number of Pokemon you have in play that has Delta on its card, and then draw up to that many cards. So that's a pretty good support draw Pokemon at the beginning of the game. If you start Castform, or even there's been positions where I benched it if my hand's kind of rough and I need to attack with something. You can just bench it and then Delta Draw, hopefully for a lot of cards, because you play a fair amount of basics that have Delta, which is kind of nice. But Holon's Castform also has a second functionality. So let's say there's a Ralts here that has an energy on it. Holon's Castform can also work like this. If it's a Pokemon in your hand, you can attach it as an energy, and then it's worth 2 rainbows, and it's also worth 2 energy. So that has a lot of synergy with Energy Jump. Like I was saying before, if you have a Pidgeot, you can Energy Jump this energy to the Pidgeot, and then just be able to attack with it if that's an option that you want to go with, which is kind of nice. So Castform utility and also early game is a draw support Pokemon, so kind of double function there, and it's just a really good card with Holon Mentor. It lets you be consistent with your energy attaches and keep whatever energy you want, right? Like you have to attack for fire or metal or psychic sometimes, so being able to just have rainbow is really clutch there. We're also playing a Scizor line. So this is kind of Japanese spice in RS to PK Gardevoir. So I've seen a lot of Japanese lists play like really heavy Scizor, like 2-2. This list is only going to be playing a 1-1, but I think that Scizor late game can just auto win you some matchups because it's so good. So let's talk about Scyther first. So Scyther, 60 HP, pretty tanky for a basic. Grass type. Leaf Ride is the reason you play this guy, so it's body. If Scyther has any energy attached to it, the Scyther's retreat cost is 0. So if you get an energy on it turn 1, it just lets you free retreat into a Castform potentially to be able to draw if that's something that you need to do. And then Fury Cutter, I guess you can use it because Holon's Castform can be your rainbows, so it does 10. Then flip 3 coins. If one of them is heads, does 10. 2 does 20. 3 or 2, it does 10 plus 20, so 30. And if all 3 of them are heads, it does 10 plus 40 damage, which is 50. So I guess that's actually kind of clutch against grass week stuff. I don't know if there might be a position where you need to swing for a lot of damage grass week late on a 1-prizer. Really uncommon, but an attack to keep in mind because it lets you swing for potentially 50 if you really need to hit that on a grass type, 100 on a grass type if they're grass week, yes. But the reason you're playing that guy is for Scizor. So Scizor EX has got 120 HP. Damage perception is the Pokebody. So as long as Scizor EX's remaining HP is 60 or less, Scizor EX does 40 more damage to the defending Pokemon. So seems kind of mediocre. Seems okay, not bad, but it's also an EX with only 120 HP, so it's probably going to get 2-shot anyway, right? You would think that. However, there's 2 reasons why that's not so true. And one of them is Steel Wing, the first attack. So Steel Wing does 40, and then during your next turn, any damage done to Scizor by attacks is reduced by 20. So this is not bad, but when combined with Special Metal Energy, which is a card that the deck plays that reduces damage done to metal types by 10, you can reduce 60 damage with Steel Wing. If you have all 4 of your special metal energies on Scizor EX, and because of energy jump, honestly, getting 4 on there is not that big of a deal, especially if you have 2 Gardevoirs. You just move 2 in a turn and then the next 2 if you have them on your board already. So it's pretty easy to set up, to be honest. And then, you just Steel Wing, you can hit them for 40. You're taking minus 60 a turn, so you kind of just chip away. They'll also probably just be trying to chip damage you if they can't one-shot you. But that opens up for a danger perception, because if they're trying to chip damage you, then danger perception is likely to get activated, and then you can swing for mega damage with crosscut. So danger perception crosscut is actually kind of crazy. So crosscut does 50, it's 3 colors, does 50, and then if the defending Pokemon is evolved Pokemon, it does 50 plus 30. So 50 plus 30 plus the 40 the danger perception adds makes crosscut be able to do 120 damage, which is a really relevant number because that's the highest HP of a non-EX stage 2 in the format. So, stuff like Nidoqueen and Tyranitar for Bomb Tar, those are both pretty tanky cards that tend to be a little bit problematic to take out because of, Nidoqueen adds poison, which turns off your abilities, and Tyranitar is obviously just a really good card. So being able to one-shot that with Crosscut is actually really, really good, especially if you have, 4 special metals on there. Forces them to hit really high. It might not be the play against Bomb Tar because you might just get bite off back, but it is an option to have, especially against other stage 2 decks. Crosscut with danger perception just lets you one-shot a stage 2, which is a really, really uncommon thing that's not very frequently able to happen. And overall, Scizor EX can be really good in some matchups, kind of useless against stuff like LBS, but in certain matchups, I've had this be a win condition, which is really nice. You're also playing one Celebi EX. The Celebi EX got 80 HP. The power is the main reason that you use it, but the attack is also quite good. So time reversal, when you bench Celebi EX, you can search your discard for a card and then put it on top of your deck. So this is kind of just late game recovery depending on what you need. Really just any card from the discard late game is nice. And then Psychic Shield does 30 for Psychic Colorless, and then prevent all effects of attacks, including damage done to Celebi, by your opponent's Pokemon EX during your opponent's next turn. So if you're against a solo EX deck, like an Arcanine that doesn't play a Houndoom or something, this can just auto-win you the matchup, which is really nice, especially because Psychic Shield, with Energy Jump, you can just surprise attack with it. You can bench it, use Time Reversal. If you have a Warp Energy, Warp, switch it active, and then use Energy Jump to move a Castform to the Celebi, and then all of a sudden you're attacking with Psychic Shield in one turn. So really clutch being able to do that, and a solid option to have against the EX matchups especially. I was playing one Holon's Magnemite, so this is kind of just keep your energy a little bit more consistent along with the Castform. So Holon's Magnemite's got 40 HP, metal type. Linear attack is actually, we'll talk about it because you do play 4 metal energy. So choose one of your opponent's Pokemon. This deck does 10 damage to that Pokemon, so not bad snipe if that's something that you have to do early. But the main reason you play it is because it does the same thing as Castform, except it's just one color. So if you have a Celebi, you can just attach Castform or Magnemite like this, rather, and then it's worth 1 colorless energy, so if it fills 1. So if you have no attachment for turn, this is mainly so that you can get an attachment off on your Holon Mentor if you don't have an attachment in your hand. Also playing one Jirachi. So Jirachi, 60 HP, metal type as well. Wishing Star, really good power. Once during your turn, you can activate Wishing Star, and then Jirachi is asleep. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck, pick one of them, put it in your hand. So a great setup Pokemon if you're not really able to do a Castform setup, or if you don't have any benched Delta Pokemon. And then also you can attack with this guy because you do play Holon's Castform and Special Metals. The Metal Color is 20, Metallic Blow. If the defending Pokemon has any Pokebodies, this attack does 20 plus 30 more damage. So there was actually, I will take a quick moment to note this. I played this deck against JP in an RSTPK gauntlet recently, and there was a moment where I thought about attacking with Metallic Blow because, it's decent and it's on a 1-prizer that isn't really vital once you're set up. Like once it's set up and it's on the bench, it's kind of just dead weight sitting there. So if you're able to not only attack with it, it gets it knocked out so that you open that bench space up, but also Metallic Blow can hit for 50, which is not so bad. I ended up not doing that. I ended up switching to the Pidgeot and using Clutch to KO instead because Pidgeot has free retreat, and I wanted to have the mobility to just retreat and do another attacker that I wanted to next turn without having to discard for retreat. But still a really good option to have, and it's actually an option that I considered in the last game that I played with this deck. Okay, getting to the trainers, starting off the 4 Holon Transceiver. Any Holon supporter build deck has to play 4 of these. It's just so good. Search your deck for a supporter card that has Holon in its name, show it to your opponent, put it in your hand, or search your discard pile for a supporter that has Holon in its name, show it to your opponent in your hand. So just supporter consistency with your Holon supporters lets you, if you find this, you're starting with a mentor turn 1, and then you're up and going. So just helps you keep your supporter consistency, and it's overall just an awesome card. Also playing 4 Rare Candy. So Rare Candy, choose one of your basic Pokemon and play. If you have a Stage 1 or Stage 2 card that evolves from that Pokemon, put it onto that basic Pokemon. You can use this card on the first turn in this format. So you can go Candy Pidgeot if you start a Pidgey, or go Candy Gardevoir and start imprisoning if that's something that you want to do as well. A really versatile card that lets you be hyper aggressive with this deck. Also playing 4 Windstorm. So this serves a couple purposes. Windstorm, choose up to 2 in any combination of Pokemon tool cards and stadium cards in play, both yours, your opponent's, and discards them. There's a couple really problematic cards that can hurt your board a lot. Cessation Crystals, one of them, shuts off all your powers if your opponent has an active Pokemon with Cessation Crystal attached, so it shuts off Quick Search. All your Gardevoir powers, just really, and Jirachi, Celebi EX, just not something that you can really afford to do because your deck functions based off powers. Also, Cursed Stone hits you for tons of damage. Like I was saying, everything has powers, all the Gardevoirs, the Pidgeots as well, Celebi and Jirachi. So Cursed Stone hits you for mega damage. Can't really afford to keep that in play for very many turns, or you might just get board wipe because of it. As well as, I don't know, there's other things too, like Crystal Beach can be problematic as well. It shuts off your Castforms, makes them 1 energy instead of 2, so it kind of lets you not have that rainbow energy out that you might need. But yeah, just being able to have the option to discard your opponent's tool cards or stadium cards, especially those 3 that I mentioned, can be really problematic. So that's why I play 4 Windstorm, just so that you have the option to discard them and get your powers back. Or, with Cursed Stone and Crystal Beach, you not have to worry about getting disrupted like that. Okay, you're also playing 2 Pokemon Retriever. So there's honestly, I think you could maybe get by with 1, but the reason that I really like 2 in this deck is because of the next card I'm going to talk about, which is Giant Stump. So I'm going to kind of talk about Giant Stump as I talk about Pokemon Retriever. So Pokemon Retriever says, search your discard pile for basic Pokemon and evolution cards. You may either show 1 basic Pokemon or evolution card to your opponent, put it in your hand, or show a combination of 3 basic Pokemon and evolution cards and shuffle them into your deck. So the reason that you really play 2 with Giant Stump. We'll just go over Giant Stump at the same time because I'm just going to be talking. The main reason for second Retriever is because of Giant Stump. The Giant Stump, as a stadium card, each player can't have more than 3 bench Pokemon. When Giant Stump comes into play, each player discards bench Pokemon and any cards attached to them until he or 3 has 3 benched Pokemon. Okay, so let's say you set up. Most of the time, you want to be starting with a Gardevoir EX because Imprison is just so good. You want to be shutting off your opponent's powers and bodies early game. And honestly, Flame Ball, if you can start attacking with it early, is a really good attack because it lets you conserve energy even if you don't have energy jump. So overall, Gardevoir EX is the card that you want to be starting. This being the case, most of the time, they're going to swing into your Gardevoir first, and your Gardevoir EX is going to take damage. This is not great because it's obviously an EX Pokemon. You don't want your opponent taking prizes. And so them damaging a Pokemon worth 2 prizes can be a big bummer. The thing about it is Gardevoir EX usually loses a lot of its strength once you've imprisoned the important cards on your opponent's board. Let's say your opponent is playing a board with Pidgeot and they set up a Pidgeot. You're able to imprison it, and then now you want to start attacking with Gardevoir instead because it's a 1-prizer and it just swings for more. So usually what happens is you attach a Warp Energy attached to Gardevoir EX and then switch into something else and then Energy Jump, kind of move the energy around when you're able to attack. But Giant Stump lets you... The main reason you play Giant Stump is so that you can heal that Gardevoir EX. Being able to discard it with the damage means that your opponent can't take 2 prizes off that, and then that you're also having a 1-prizer in the active. So if they weren't able to KO the Gardevoir EX and they haven't taken a knockout, you take it off of your board, usually after a Celebi EX, because Celebi EX is also... Time Reversal is just so good, getting a card from your discard. Rare Candy or Transceiver or Windstorm or like just any card, honestly. Supporter cards too, sometimes Energy is just so good. So You load your bench full with a Celebi X, and then you have the damaged Gardevoir that you had active early on the bench. When you play Giant Stump, you ditch the Guardy, ditch the Celebi. The reason that 2 Retriever is so good is because you're able to actually do this play twice. So let's say you do it the first time, right? You only play 1 Giant Stump. So you Giant Stump, ditch the Celebi and the Gardevoir. If you use a Retriever, put back Celebi and a Gardevoir line. Let's like say you got a Candy with the Celebi, so you get Celebi, Guardy, and a Ralts back, because then you just have, you know, more rare candies. It's just really good. Your next Celebi, because you shuffled it back with Pokemon Retriever, you can Celebi for a Giant Stump, and then quick search. Hopefully you have a Pidgeot in play by that point. Quick search for the Giant Stump and just rinse and repeat. So it just lets you have healing options as well as taking your EX liabilities off the board, which is way too good not to include as a one-of. Giant Stump is, it seems really lackluster and whatever because you're a stage 2 deck and you usually want bench, but it's actually so important to keeping your momentum flowing and stopping your opponent from taking prizes. So Giant Stump, really cool card in the deck. Yeah. Okay, so getting the supporter cards, playing 4 Rockets admin as well. Each player shuffles his or her hand to his or her deck, then draws up to their prize cards. So just good early game draw, but also a good late game disruption. Sometimes your opponent can take a lead on you because this is a stage 2 deck, but this deck is also really good at coming back. Imprison is a great comeback power. Being able to shut off your opponent's powers really easily lets you steal back the control of the board. So Rockets have been, you play for, I mean, honestly, it's just a good draw supporter as well. And being able to disrupt, it's just a great staple card that like every list in the format plays. It's so good. Also playing 3 Holon Mentor. So Holon Mentor, discard a card from your hand. Then search your deck for up to 3 basic Pokemon with HP 100 or less. Show them to your opponent, put in your hand. So that searches for all your basics. Ralts, Pidgey, Castform, Scyther, these 3. Just staple support. Like I was saying, Holon Transceiver can also grab this. So you have 7 outs to hit a really good basic search on turn 1, which means the deck is relatively consistent. Also playing 2 Professor Elm's Training Method. The Professor Elm's Training Method says search your deck for an evolution card, show it to your opponent, put it in your hand. The main reason that you're playing Elms over other things is because Elms lets you grab EX Pokemon. Celio's Network unfortunately does not. And you do play Gardevoir EX as well as the Scizor. So you're able to grab Pidgeot and your other Gardevoir line as well as Pidgeotto. But it lets you grab the Scizor and the Gardevoir EX as well. So that's mainly what it's for, is hitting an early Gardevoir. I was playing 2 Steven's Advice, so a great supporter from the format. Draw a number of cards up to the number of your opponent's Pokemon in play. If your opponent has the full board, it lets you draw 6 cards off the top, which is great. If you have more than 7 cards in your hand, then you can't play this card. Obviously, just a balance, because being able to draw straight 6 if you had 13 in hand would be pretty good. I was also playing 1 Holon Adventurer. So Holon Adventurer, discard a card from your hand. Draw 3 cards. If you discarded a Pokemon that has Delta on its card, draw 4 cards instead. So it's kind of nice. Sometimes you're able to ditch pieces that you don't need if you already have an Energy Jump Gardevoir in play and you don't think you're going to need another one, or same for Gardevoir EX kind of thing, or Pidgeotto. It's really just dependent. But being able to ditch a Delta Pokemon for 4 is actually pretty clutch. Also playing 1 Holon Researcher. So Holon Researcher, discard a card from your hand, search your deck for a Metal Energy, which you play in the deck, so it's kind of nice in some situations. Or a basic Pokemon or evolution card that has Delta on its card. Go to your opponent, put in your hand. So this is also helps you grab Delta Pokemon. You don't really have a reason to grab basics because Mentor just does that, but better. But it does grab your evolution Pokemon, so it lets you find Gardevoir EX, searchable with Transceiver. So you play Elm's Training Method, and with a Researcher and 4 Transceiver, means your turn 2 outs for Gardevoir EX is roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 9, which is pretty decent, honestly. Not so bad to have outs to hit a Gardevoir turn 2. Okay, getting into the energy cards. First, we're going to be playing 4 Warp Energies. So, like I was saying before, it's really pivotal to switch Pokemon at certain points in the game. Like when you've already set up your Imprison counters, or if you want to switch up your attackers, if you want to use Clutch, if you want to switch to Scizor EX, if you want to switch to Celebi EX, use Psychic Shield. You're just honestly always switching. So, because of that, Warp Energy is great. Warp Energy, when you attach to your active Pokemon, you have to switch. But again, because of the free retreat with Pidgeot, it usually is not going to matter if your board's set up in terms of like not being able to attack. And also just lets you be mobile in terms of your attackers, which is super important to the deck. Also going to be playing 4 Special Metal Energy. So Special Metal Energy, worth metal. If it's attached to a Pokemon that's metal, Special Metal Energy... the Pokemon that Special Metal Energy is attached to takes 10 less damage from attack. So like I was saying, this stacks as well. So, you know, if you have it on a Gardevoir, if you have two and you're fulfilling the colorless for black magic, then it's essentially got 120 HP, which is significantly better than 100. You're not getting one shot by stuff like Steelix, as well as Scizor EX. So Scizor EX's Danger Perception and Steel Wing have so much synergy with special metal energy, and just being able to energy jump and move the energy there late game can be so good against decks that can't one shot you. Okay, so this has been Gardevoir Delta for the RS to PK format. If you have any questions about the deck, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get to them. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.